Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a terrible Karen calls the police on a little girl that is fighting cancer. She claims that she is faking her illness. If you haven't already, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify. You will get early access to new content and exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. So this happened in the week between Christmas and New Year of 2018. A time when most people come together to celebrate while others are so deep in their jealousy that they cannot handle anyone else's happiness. I own a bakery in my area and I've been involved in many charitable works over the years, including working for Make-A-Wish type foundations. At that time, I was reached out by a similar foundation to help a little girl. The girl was 12 at the time and battling cancer, but her parents were barely able to cover the cost of her treatment with their income. Though young, the girl understood the condition of her parents and wanted to do an event to raise money for her chemotherapy treatments. The said event was gonna be her on her keyboard playing for the public in the local park. However, she was not confident in her talent and had thus requested if I can give away baked goods to attract the audience. The little girl had not requested a lot, just cookies, but I talked with the foundation and decided to add brownies and cinnamon rolls to help raise money. It was pretty cold that week, so we decided to have 3 events of 2 hours each in the noon when the weather is a bit warm. Much was not required, just a few tables and chairs and a big jar. On the first day, our setup attracted the few people. The donation jar had a clear label which told everyone what this whole event was about, and before even starting, we had 2 teenagers come up and drop in their savings. The things I had made were divided into 3 tiers. Tier 1, donate 10 to 50 bucks for a cookie. Tier 2, donate 50 to 100 bucks for a brownie. And Tier 3, donate over $100 for a cinnamon roll. The kids had donated a total of 12 bucks, and when they read the tiers, they asked for a cookie. And though it was what they should technically get, what they deserved were the cinnamon rolls, so I ended up giving them 1 each. Their excited cheers attracted more people, and when the main star of the show sat on her chair, the teenagers were her first audience. Many people that were donating, many were not even asking for the food, they said that they were paying to see the musical genius. This obviously did wonders for the little girl, who started playing more confidently. Things were going pretty wholesome when none other than the Karen decided to be a party pooper. She threw in a crumpled note in the jar without even informing the employees standing there of her name or donation amount before then coming to my table. Karen, 2 cinnamon rolls and make sure they have a lot of glazing for that ridiculous price. Me, sure, show me your coupon. Karen, what coupon? Listen lady, don't waste my time. I have better things to do than wait here in this cold. Me, the coupon that you're supposed to get from there. I point at the table with the jar. Karen, well, they didn't give me one. It seems like no one here knows how to work. I expected her to continue arguing with me, but surprisingly she turned back to go towards the table. But soon she started arguing with them, and while I couldn't hear what the employees were trying to say, I could hear her shouting about how they were scamming innocent civilians and robbing them in broad daylight. The screaming got so loud that the little girl stopped playing her keyboard, asking her parents if her show was causing any problem. Thankfully, the small audience that had gathered reassured her, and the teenagers from before even shared their cinnamon rolls with her. The lady walked off after a few more minutes of screaming, and though we tried to continue as normal, it was clear that the little girl was a bit scared. So we decided to cut it short and have a longer show the next day. I also got to know from the employees that the Karen had not gone to get a coupon but to demand a refund of the 200 bucks she had put in the jar. But the employee there had immediately checked the note after she had thrown it in, and it was a single $10 note, not 2 $100 notes as she was claiming, hence the screaming badge. Karen was not calming down whatsoever, and now she got to the point where she threatened to call the police if we don't stop this scam immediately. She ended up dialing 911 and letting them know that she uncovered a massive scam that steals money from people in the neighborhood and to please let all available units come to this location. The 911 call was not necessary because members of the local police force were already present at the event since they wanted to help us. They reassured the Karen that this is not a scam and that she must calm down. It seemed like the police officers were able to calm Karen Zilla down, and she marched away huffing and puffing, red like a tomato. The next day came and things are going smoothly. Cookies were sold out and I only had a few brownies and cinnamon rolls left, so we decided to increase the price. 100 to 150 bucks for a brownie and over 150 for a cinnamon roll. And then came Karen again. I spotted her from far away and told the employees to be on the lookout for her. However, she passed by all the tables and instead came to sit with the audience, though she made sure to wedge herself between them so she was right in front of the little girl. Immediately I was on alert. The girl's parents were sitting near her, but you never know with these Karens. As the show went on, I saw Karen make faces at the girl, mostly of disgust and annoyance, making the girl look around meekly. Since the Karen was at the front, people were not able to see what she was doing, but the girl's parents saw everything. They tried to politely ask the woman to leave, to which she sneered and said that this was a public park and she could do anything she wanted. After about 20 minutes, the Karen finally got up and came to my table. She looked at my goods before the small board that I had set up caught her eyes. "Karen, what are these ridiculous prices? You think you can put any stupid price tags on these below average goods and people will buy it?" Me, yes, many people have bought it actually. As you can see, the cookies are sold out. Karen, now turning towards the audience, "Don't you airheads see that you are being scammed? These people are using your sympathy to squeeze money from your pockets. And you are here clapping for the noise that the stupid brat is producing. This kid is faking the illness." I know that some people do use charities to scam people, but this foundation was not unknown by any means. Also, I knew that it was not about the legitimacy, but about how she was not able to scam us earlier. MG, the manager who was assigned by the foundation to oversee this event. MG, "Ma'am, this is not a scam and you can look up our foundation online. Please stop creating a disturbance." Karen, "I'm creating a disturbance? You should first throw away this brat's keyboard who clearly doesn't know how to play. God, it's giving me a headache." As she was throwing a hissy fit, the audience slowly got up. While the younger ones tried to console the girl who had started crying, the adults were all throwing glares at the Karen. At being stared down like this, the Karen got angrier, and before I know it, she had picked up the empty tray of the cookies and flung it towards the little girl. Fortunately, her dad was quick to block the flying metal, but I knew it must have hurt. A few people stepped back from the crazy Karen, some ran towards the girl, but most were now starting to shout at Karen. She shouted back saying how the little brat was annoying her with her crying and how they were all stupid to fall for this obvious scam. From the back of the crowd, I see a man coming towards us, and maybe Karen saw him as well, as she started stepping back until she reached the donation table and snatched the jar sitting there. She tried to make a run for it, but the man chased her down and effectively pinned her to the ground. After the commotion had died down, we got to know that the man was an off-duty officer. The team that was on duty was arriving soon and they will take care of this Karen. I did not get to know what happened to Karen, just that she was jailed for a few months. Thankfully, the third day of this event went by much smoother. We extended the event to be of 4 hours and were able to raise a lot more money. Edit, the little girl won her battle against cancer in 2019. She still continues to have weekly music sessions in the park and I attend it whenever I'm free. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm so happy that Karen got what she deserved, even though I think that Karen would have deserved a few months or maybe a few more years in jail. I'm not sure that such hateful, stupid people should roam around free in public. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment because that would help me tremendously. And the next one is titled Malicious Compliance. This is my dad's story and involves my brother, who I will call John Smith for anonymity. So one day an officer shows up and knocks on the door. My dad answers and the officer says, "Hello, is this the residence of John Smith?" My dad says yes, it is. The officer asks my dad if he was home, to which my dad says no, he is not. Since my brother was still a youth, the officer asks my dad if he was a legal guardian of my brother, to which he says yes, I am. The officer hands him a paper and it was a summons to appear in court for some charges against him and says John Smith needs to be in court on that date. My dad tries to hand the paper back and say, "It wasn't him, you have the wrong guy." To which the officer cuts him off and says, "No, I don't, and he needs to be in court that day." Again, my dad says, "John Smith didn't do this, and you have the wrong guy," and tries to hand back the paper again. What I need to add is my brother was a troubled youth who had countless run-ins with the law, so every cop in town knew him and had arrested him dozens of times, so this officer was quite happy to serve my brother one more time. He even knew exactly where my brother lived without even looking at the address on the paper. After my dad said the last time you have the wrong guy, the officer got nasty and said in a crappy tone, "No, I don't have the wrong guy, and he has to show up for court. If he doesn't, he will be in trouble." This pissed my dad off since the officer was being so rude, so my dad says to him, "Okay, so this is my piece of paper then, and I can do what I want with it, yeah?" And the officer said, "Yes it is." So my dad ripped it into a bunch of pieces and threw it into the dirt. The officer then laughs and says, "It doesn't matter, he still needs to be in court." To which my dad begins to laugh loudly in his face. The officer not understanding why he had a blank stare on his face. My dad then asks, "Hey, what was the address on your paperwork?" To which the officer starts looking at the copy of the paperwork he was still holding, and my dad watched as a confused look came over his face. "This is not even the address you had on the paper, and I was trying to tell you that, but you were being so rude and cut me off every time. Now look at the full name, do you notice anything? It says John Rip Smith, and my son's name is John Plenty Smith. Again, you have the wrong guy. Now take your damn piece of paper and F off." The officer was shocked. "You ripped my paperwork, that was an official copy." My dad again laughs at him. "No, you said that was my paper, and now take your garbage and get the F out of my property." And the next one is another malicious compliance story. A few years back, I worked as a field supervisor for a security company. I drove patrol at night and had several accounts that I was required to check on and write a report for each night. In addition to this, I would check on standing guards at their assigned properties to make sure they were okay, not sleeping, and provide anything they might need. I was given a workload that was nearly impossible to keep up with each night and was always in a hurry. To deal with this, I would call a guard as I approached a property that was standing and have them meet me at an assigned location on the property. There was one guard who always seemed to take forever to show up for the meeting. Usually I had to wait up to 30 minutes for the guard to arrive. He always explained that he was busy when I called him. I noted this in my patrol reports to management to explain why I spent half an hour at a property I was not monitoring. I never received any feedback on this, so I began showing up at this property unannounced and would search for the guard to see what he was doing. After several times of not finding the guard on property and always finding the property in almost chaos, nothing locked up, huge pool parties after hours, cars lining the fire lanes, etc., I had a meeting with management to explain the situation. The manager was upset that I would even suggest that the guard was not there. I was told that if I found something that needed to be addressed when I arrived, then just take care of it myself and write a report for the property. The next night I arrived and as usual could not find the guard. I conducted a full patrol of the property, shut down the usual pool party, locked all the facilities and tagged the fire lane violations. I then wrote a report explaining the problems encountered and why I was handling them. I did this every night for a week. The security company lost the account plus 5 others that were managed by the same property management. Subsequently, I was fired for doing the job I was told to do. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, this guy took malicious compliance very far. If you have ever engaged in any sort of malicious compliance or pro-revenge at your job, please let us know in the comments, or if you have a longer story, feel free to share it on r/Ripe Stories on Reddit, which is our own subreddit where you can submit longer stories and there's a good chance I will read them in a video. And the next one is titled, Husband, Am I the A-hole or not? So my female 30 and my husband, male 32, have a toddler together, male 4. Our property has no fence. I was inside and my husband was sitting on the porch watching our son, and our son was playing on the lawn. All of a sudden, I heard my kid wailing and I rushed outside. He had fallen and scraped his knee. I saw my husband head over before me, which makes sense because he was closer than I was, but when he squatted down to help, he fainted. The exact timing is unclear. I don't know if he squatted and then fainted or fainted mid-squat. I just know he was passed out on the grass by the time I got there. My husband is squeamish. He doesn't like gore and blood makes him uncomfortable. I knew this when we dated and I knew it when we married. He has fainted before. We dated in college and he faints at vomit as well, and he usually comes to shortly after. We have been together 10 years and I've seen him faint maybe 3 times, including this instance. Anyway, he passed out on the grass and my son was still screaming, so I picked him up and carried him inside. When I was dressing his wound, my husband came in a couple minutes later, angry that I left him unconscious and unattended on our lawn. We don't live in a dangerous neighborhood, we are friends with our neighbors, and he was dressed for the weather because he was sitting on the porch outside anyway, and we live in an area where the climate doesn't fluctuate too much, so I didn't feel there was a risk of hypothermia or heat stroke. It was maybe 70 degrees and clear, which is why we let our son play outside. It only takes a couple of minutes to dress my son's wound and kiss it better, so I would have checked on my husband shortly after, but my husband says I should never leave someone unconscious and unattended. I agree with this point generally, but if there's only 2 of us present and our son is hurt, I don't see what the big deal is. He thinks I should have left our son with him while I go inside to get the bandages and dress his wound on the lawn, or take my son inside, get the bandages and bring him back out to dress his wound on the lawn. I guess the last idea makes sense, but as a mom with a crying kid, I didn't think about it that deeply. Am I the a-hole Reddit? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think that OP was the a-hole here or not? A user in the comments said, I will probably get downvoted, but you're the a-hole. I don't think you should leave someone unconscious unattended, even if it is just for a couple of minutes. That's long enough for the tongue to block their airways, and any more than 1 minute of being out is dangerous. And it could have been a heart attack or something more serious. You should have revived him first, as scraped knee is not as risky a situation. Comment number 2, you are the a-hole. I'm telling you this as someone with first aid. You failed your husband, you didn't even check if he had a pulse and didn't call for help. You assumed he just fainted at the sight of blood. Maybe he did, but maybe he didn't. He still could have hit his head or something. As a mother myself, I get you wanted to take care of your kid's skinned knee and stop their crying, but it doesn't override the fact that you left someone in a vulnerable state. The best advice, take a first aid course if you don't know what is the best thing to do here. Comment number 3, you are the a-hole. Man, you couldn't even skip the kissing it better part while your husband was passed out. You truly seem like you don't give a damn about his well-being. The last option was the obvious one, and it's hard to understand why you wouldn't do that. Comment number 4, you are the a-hole. A little. Look, sometimes there are multiple emergencies and you have to deal with them all at once. Also, speaking as a parent, a screaming child is conscious and has an open airway, which puts them at least 1 better than the person that just fainted. The screaming person is not the biggest emergency if there's someone nearby who cannot scream. You need to check basic vitals before you decide how to proceed. No harm here, it's an apologize and do better next time situation. And the next one is an HOA story, and it is titled, HOA Karen fined me $500 for feeding ducks. I covered her yard with bird feed and got her kicked out. I want to start this wonderful and stinky revenge story off by saying that I truly enjoy my neighborhood and I don't think I have some kind of monstrous homeowner association. However, there is one lady that is on the HOA board that is certainly the evil Disney villain here. I live in a horseshoe-shaped neighborhood of double condominiums that are inhabited by primarily senior citizens like myself. There are a few young families, but mostly older folks live here. My husband and I had been in our condo for about 3 years when a new woman moved in about 2 doors down from us. Her name was Debbie and she had a snobby and crass tone to her from the very first day I met her. She was easily my age or older and yet continued to color her hair a fake-looking red and would wear it curly and tall on her head like she never left the 50s. Her excessive eyeliner and overlined red lips were also cringy, that is what my granddaughter called her at least. Again, my HOA is not necessarily full of tyrants and for the most part everyone abides by the rules and keeps to themselves, but eventually some drama ensues with new neighbor Debbie. Everything begins with some ducks. That is right, ducks. At the front and center of our horseshoe-shaped neighborhood is a humble-sized pond that many ducks, geese and other birds choose to spend their time bathing, eating and lingering in. I, personally, think that is cute and I love to watch them float around on the water and tend to their nests on the bank. I had tried to be cordial and make friends with her when I would see her out on our daily walks throughout the neighborhood. She never wanted a partner and would speedwalk with her weights like she was in some kind of competition to avoid everyone else. She also had a little yappy dog that no one liked because she would leave it outside at 4:30 AM and let it bark its ever-loving head off. Her direct neighbor is a friend of mine called Louise, that I play card club with, and she told us about how she attempted to ask Debbie to keep the dog inside that early in the morning, and she proceeded to be rude and shout at Louise, telling her to mind her damn business, and slam the door. Considering everyone in our neighborhood has strived to be polite and help each other, this woman sticks out like a sore thumb among the rest of us. Louise even attempted to take the issue with the dog to the HOA board and found out that Debbie was the newest member somehow. That's just great. Do we need some lady like her handing out fines now? Louise had to drop the issue as she did not want to have more problems with Debbie and her yappy dog. A few months passed and everything was normal, but then spring came and there was an abundance of ducks at the pond. The maintenance crew had forgotten to put the fake floating alligator heads in the water to deter them from taking up residence there. I honestly did not even think that the ducks could be a big deal at all, and for the most part they weren't until an angry Debbie got involved. I had a partial stale loaf of bread that I did not want to go to waste, so I thought I would go down to the pond and toss some of it to the ducks and their babies. My granddaughter and I had a blast handing bread to our feathered friends. They quacked happily and circled around us asking for more until a startling scream erupted and caused us and the poor ducks to jump. To be honest, I thought that she had fallen down her deck steps and broken her hip because the shouting was so uncalled for. Her volume is truly impressive though, because she could be clearly heard from her home, which was about 4 houses north of the pond. "What do you think you're doing feeding those nasty creatures?" she screamed from her wooden deck. Debbie then marched down her steps and stormed towards us, waving her arms at the ducks to startle them, and then she whirled around on us. "Stop feeding them! You need to leave!" She shouted some more. "These animals are not even supposed to be here, and you are only encouraging them to stay and poop all over the neighborhood." I was so stunned for a moment that I did not speak right away. We are just giving the ducks some bread." Debbie did not like that and stepped up aggressively, almost getting in my face. "I don't care what you are feeding these disgusting, disease-ridden animals, but it needs to stop." She pointed at the ducks with her curved, arthritic finger, glaring at them like they had personally done something to her. My granddaughter was about 14 at the time, and she has never been the type to hold her tongue. "You need to get out of my grandma's face right now." She stepped up and wedged herself in between the two of us, firmly standing her ground. "The ducks are not hurting anybody, and you need to be the one that leaves." She raised her chin to Debbie, and this filled the woman with a rage that I could see bubbling up to the surface. "Oh, I see. You have your little granddaughter to stand up for you." She turned on her heel and headed back down the sidewalk to her house, making sure to dramatically step around piles of duck poop that was not even there. "We will see what the HOA says about this," I heard her shout as she stormed off, telling her little yapper to shut up as she approached the back door. I was upset, but certainly not shaken by this woman's grotesque attitude towards the ducks and myself. I was proud of my granddaughter for standing up to her. My son had raised her to be strong and independent. I did not think too much of the incident, but had a good time telling the story to my ladies at the card club. I honestly assumed nothing would come of her threat with the HOA until I received a letter about 2 weeks later, fining me $500 for feeding unapproved wildlife. $500 is pretty steep, especially for tossing some ducks a little stale bread. I could not believe it until I finished reading the whole page and noticed one of the signatures at the bottom was none other than Debbie's. Okay, now she has crossed the line. It's one thing if you want to complain about the whole thing, but do actually fine me for it is asinine. When I called and spoke with another board member, they said that they would not remove the fine. Unlucky for Debbie, I grew up with 3 brothers and they were always trying to prank each other. Something that I remembered my oldest brother doing once was leaving a trail of pig feed to our other brother's truck so that the swine could climb in and make a mess of things. What a good idea. I decided to buy some more old bread from the bakery along with some tasty birdseed and feed. My granddaughter and I went outside very early in the morning and tossed bread all over her yard and made a trail of birdseed that led from the pond to her house. We were not even finished before the ducks were already marching in a group over to Debbie's property, preparing to eat and poop all over the place. We posted up with some coffee and breakfast in my garage and waited. The morning was beautiful anyway and the sunrise was guaranteed to be perfect. What a great day for revenge. It was not too long before the yapper was let outside and you could hear it run back in, yipping over the ducks, chasing it from their food and babies. This must have alerted Debbie to something being wrong, because it was only a minute later when we heard another impressive scream from her. The words were not really audible and I was laughing too hard to care anyway. She was in her yard shouting nonsense and swinging a broom around for about 20 minutes before she gave up and realized that the ducks were not going anywhere until they were content. The situation tickled me to death and my granddaughter and I spent most of the day laughing about it, but the revenge was even sweeter than I could have imagined. Apparently, the ruckus that she created, screaming and hitting the ducks with her broom, did not impress her fellow board members or the surrounding neighbors. She was let go from the HOA board and ended up selling her house about 6 months later. Everyone was happy, considering anyone who met her seemed to leave with a bad taste in their mouth. She was rude and cruel and a bad neighbor. Our peaceful residence is back to normal, with happy neighbors and ducks to be fed. Not sure where Debbie moved, but I really hope there is no pond nearby. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.